All right, so now that we've created pages for logging in and creating an account, the next thing that we're going to do, well, we're going to do a few things actually, but the first thing is going to be adding some basic styling to these elements in the page so that they look a little better. Now, I actually lied a little bit, not intentionally, when I said that we were going to have to copy and paste those styles because we actually already have those styles necessary in our application. So what I'm talking about specifically is we already have a full width style, which we'll be able to use to make sure that these things each are displayed on their own line. We already have, I believe it's called space after, something like that, or space below. But that's a class that will allow us to put the appropriate amount of space in between each of our elements on our page. And as you can see, we're already displaying our page inside a width constrained div, right? So that div is making sure that this thing isn't spread out across the entire page. Those are things that I wasn't thinking about when I first said that we were going to have to copy and paste those styles. So fortunately for us, we are pretty much good to go. Let's just go into our forms and add those styles now. We're going to open up our login and create account forms. So login form and create account form. And what we're going to need to do is add the class names that I just mentioned to each of these inputs. So we'll say class name equals full width, and I believe it's called space below. Let me just open up index.css and check. There we go. Yep, space below is the one we're looking for. So let's add that here, full width and space below. And we're going to want to do the same thing for our next input. So let's copy that, paste that. And for our button, we're just going to add those same classes. Let me try that again. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted either. Let me try recopying this class name. Apparently I got something I didn't bargain for. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here, just going to adjust the indentation here. The next thing we're going to do here now is we're going to adjust our create account form in the same way. So we're just going to paste that class name for each of these. That's pretty straightforward to do. And for our button as well, we're going to just indent this and put that class name underneath it. And there we go. So now if we go back to our login and create account pages, we see that they look a bit better, right? They're not perfect, but they do look better than they did before. And better, rephrase, and better still, we can actually put in something here like sean@gmail.com, blah, blah, blah is our password, blah, blah, blah is our confirmed password, and if we click create account, it'll say creating account and automatically navigate us to the notes page. All right, and likewise for our login page, let's take a look and see what that looks like. This one's looking pretty good too. Currently, we can just enter in anything we want. It doesn't even have to be an email, really, although just for the sake of testing, I'll do it. And now if we click on login, it'll say logging in and send us to the notes page as well. So one last thing that I want to add style-wise to these pages, and we can do that by saying login. I'm just going to go back to that page, is I would like to center this login heading and this link down here. Now what we can do for that, we can either add inline styles or we can just add a universal style for our index.css, similar to what we did with full width, space below, evenly spaced, weak, etc. We're going to add another style, which we'll just call centered. Actually, let's call this something like H-centered, so horizontally centered. And for that, we're just going to say text align, center, and now we can just go into our forms and add that to actually our pages. Let's open up our login page and our create account page. And we're going to add that style to our H1 heading. We're going to say class name equals H-centered. And same thing for our link. We're going to indent this here. And we're going to say class name equals H-centered. Okay, so we'll indent that there. And that should correct our login page. Oops, it looks like that didn't work for the link for some reason. Let me just go back and have a look here. Maybe we also need to say full width for this one to make sure it's taking up the width of its parent. Nope. All right. And actually, in order to get this to work, we're going to have to add a display block to this link. So I'm just going to say display block. And that's probably something we could add to our universal H-centered style, but for now I'll just leave it. So we don't even need full width anymore. That should work with just H-centered. And sure enough, we see that our link component is now centered underneath the button just like we want it to be. Okay, so let's go back to our create account page now and do the same thing. We're going to open that up. I already have it here. And basically, we're just going to say class name for our heading. We're going to set that to H-centered. And for our link, we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to say class name equals H-centered. And above that, we're going to add style and set it to display block. All right, cool. So now if we go back here, we should see that all of that stuff is centered and looking pretty darn good. And that should about do it for our login and create account pages. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.